My mother-in-law looked me dead in the eyes the night she threw me out and said, "You were never good enough for my son. You were never family." I was 7 months pregnant. It was February, cold enough that my breath made little clouds in the air as I stood on the driveway with a single duffel bag, my car keys, and $32 in my wallet. My husband, the man I had been with for 4 years, married to for 2, stood in the doorway of his mother's house and said nothing. He just watched me back out of the driveway. "I want you to stop for a second. Before I tell you what happened that night and what I did after I drove away, tell me, what time is it where you are right now and where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I'll be reading every single one, okay? Let me start from the beginning. My name is Ivy. I'm 31 now. When all of this started, I was 27, working as a registered nurse at a mid-size hospital in suburban Ohio, newly married to a man I genuinely believed was my person. His name was Shane. Shane was kind when it was just the two of us, gentle, even. He brought me coffee on my overnight shifts. He remembered that I hated cilantro. He called his mom every Sunday. That last part should have been a clue. His mother, I'll just call her my mother-in-law, had a specific vision for her son's life, and I was not part of it. I figured that out within the first 6 months of dating Shane. She made comments, nothing you could directly confront. Little things. "Oh, Ivy, you work nights?" Shane always said he'd want a wife who is home for dinner. Or, "It's so brave of you to be a nurse. I just always worry about the germs." Smiled the whole time she said it. Shane would squeeze my hand under the table and whisper later, "She just needs to warm up to you." 2 years of marriage. She never warmed up. When I got pregnant, I thought things might change. I was naive. I really believed that a grandchild would soften something in her. Instead, she got worse. She started calling Shane separately without telling me, having conversations about the future and what kind of environment a baby needs. I found out because Shane's younger sister, who I actually loved, who was the one decent person in that family, told me. She pulled me aside at Christmas and said, "Ivy, I don't want to scare you, but you need to know what's being said." What was being said was that I wasn't stable enough. That a woman who worked 12-hour overnight shifts couldn't be a good mother, that Shane needed someone more traditional, that maybe the pregnancy was a reason to reassess the relationship. I confronted Shane. He said his mother was just worried, that she meant well, that I was being sensitive. That was January. In February, his parents had a big family dinner, birthday for his uncle. Shane said it would be good for me to come. Show face, smooth things over. I didn't want to go. I was 7 months pregnant, my back hurt constantly, and the idea of sitting through 4 hours with his mother made me tired in a way I can't fully describe. But I went, because I was still trying. Because I still believed in my husband. Dinner was fine until it wasn't. It started with something small, the way things always do. His mother made a comment about the nursery. I had sent her pictures because Shane asked me to, trying to include her. She said the colors were a little chaotic. Said she had some ideas. Said maybe she and Shane could go together to pick out some things over the weekend, just the two of them, so Shane could have some input. Shane and I had designed that nursery together. We had spent 3 weekends on it. I said, calmly, that Shane and I had already finished the nursery and we were happy with it. She looked at me the way you look at someone who has just said something embarrassing at a dinner table, that slow blink, and then she turned to Shane and started talking about something else entirely. That was the moment I stopped trying. I got up to use the bathroom. When I came back, I heard my name from the hallway, my mother-in-law's voice. I'm not proud that I stood there and listened, but I did. She was telling Shane that I was difficult, that I had always had an attitude problem, that she didn't understand how he had let things get this far, that the baby changes everything and maybe it was time to have a serious conversation about what kind of life he actually wanted. Then she said, she will never put this family first. That's just who she is. I walked back into the room. I picked up my purse. I said very quietly, I'm going to head home. Shane said. Already? I said, yes. His mother stood up. I don't know what she thought was going to happen. Maybe she thought I would argue, maybe she wanted me to. Instead, I walked to the front door and she followed me, and right there in the entryway, in front of 3 of his aunts and his uncle and his sister and 2 cousins, she said it. You were never good enough for my son. You were never family. I don't know why you keep pretending you are. I looked at Shane. He was standing at the edge of the hallway. He saw me look at him. He didn't say a word. I picked up my duffel bag. I had brought it in because it had my work badge and some snacks and my prenatal vitamins. I wasn't planning to leave forever. I was just going home from dinner, and I walked out the door. It was 18 degrees outside. I sat in my car for about 4 minutes. I was shaking, but I wasn't crying. I kept waiting to cry, and it didn't come. I just felt this very strange, very quiet stillness, like something had just locked into place. I drove home. Shane didn't come home that night. He texted me at 11:30 p.m. to say he was giving me space. I read that text, put my phone face down on the nightstand, and went to sleep. I want to tell you that I had some dramatic plan. I didn't. I just knew, with a clarity I had never felt before, that I was done. Not in a rage, not in a spiral. Just done. The way you're done when you've been holding something very heavy for a very long time and your arms finally give out. The next morning, I called my older sister. She lives in Columbus, about 40 minutes from me. I told her everything. She drove over within the hour, sat at my kitchen table and said, "Okay, what do you need?" That's the thing about people who actually love you. They don't explain why you're wrong. They ask what you need. What I needed was a lawyer. I contacted a family attorney that week. I documented everything I could. Text messages, voicemails from my mother-in-law, the Christmas conversation my sister-in-law had warned me about. I saved every message. My sister-in-law, bless her, was willing to provide a written statement. She had seen enough. She was done, too. Shane came home 2 days after the dinner. He said he thought I owed his mother an apology. He said I had stormed out and made the family uncomfortable. He said maybe I needed to consider therapy to work on my reactivity. I handed him a business card. My attorney's name was on it. He looked at it for a long time. Then he said, "You're serious?" I said, "I have been serious for a long time. You just weren't watching." The next 7 months were not easy. I won't pretend they were. I was navigating a divorce while 8, then 9 months pregnant. I moved in with my sister temporarily. I cried more than I thought I had left in me. There were nights I lay awake terrified, about money, about custody, about doing this alone, about whether I had made the right choice even when I absolutely knew, that I had. My daughter was born in May. 6 pounds, 4 ounces. I named her on my own, something I had picked without asking anyone's opinion, without running it past anyone for approval. She was perfect. She is perfect. Shane was present for the birth. We had agreed on that. He held her. I watched him hold her, and I felt nothing complicated about it. She deserved a father who showed up, and I was going to give her that even if I couldn't give her an intact family. The divorce was finalized 4 months after she was born. My mother-in-law sent me a letter, an actual physical letter, mailed to my sister's address, which is how I knew she had either gone through Shane's phone or hired someone. The letter said that I had destroyed this family and that she would pray for my daughter to have the guidance I clearly couldn't provide. I scanned it and sent it to my attorney. Then I blocked every number associated with that family except for Shane's, because he was our daughter's father and I was not going to let my feelings about what he had done make my daughter collateral damage. 3 years passed. I went back to work. I moved into my own apartment. I picked up extra shifts, saved aggressively, bought a small house 18 months after the divorce. A 3-bedroom with a yard and a porch and a big window in the kitchen that gets light in the morning. My daughter learned to walk in that yard. I built something. Quietly and without an audience, I built something real. Shane and I found a custody rhythm that worked. He showed up. I'll give him that. Post-divorce, without his mother whispering in his ear every Sunday, he actually showed up. We were never going to be friends, but we were parents together, and we figured out how to do that. His mother, I heard through his sister, had not taken the divorce quietly. She had apparently gone on a campaign, told extended family members her version of events, tried to get Shane to push for full custody, lobbied for grandparents' rights, which went nowhere because there are significant legal thresholds for that in Ohio, and she didn't meet them. She had made herself the center of a drama that no one outside her immediate circle was particularly interested in. His sister kept me loosely informed because we had maintained a friendship, carefully. She told me without details when things were happening. I was grateful for that. Then, about 3 months ago, I was at work. I'm charge nurse now on my unit. That happened about a year ago. I was halfway through a shift when I got a call from an unknown number. I don't usually answer unknown numbers. I answered this one for no reason I can explain. It was Shane's older brother. I hadn't spoken to him in 3 years. He said my mother-in-law was in the hospital. Serious situation. Cardiac event. He said she was asking to see me. I said, I'm sorry. That's difficult. He said, she's been asking for you specifically. I said, I appreciate you calling. I hope she recovers. He said, Ivy. I said, I have to get back to my shift. I hung up. I stood in the hallway for a moment. I waited to feel guilty. I waited for that tug. That old pull that tells women in particular that their softness is required, that their forgiveness is owed, that their discomfort is less important than someone else's need. It didn't come. I went back to my patients. Over the next 2 weeks, I received 41 missed calls. Shane's brother, a number I didn't recognize that was probably Shane's mother calling from a hospital phone. Shane himself, though he also texted separately and his texts were more measured. He said his mother was going through something hard, and that he thought it might help if I reached out. He was careful. He wasn't demanding. But the request was there. I want to be honest with you about what I felt, because I've seen stories like this where the narrator makes themselves perfectly righteous and the emotions are all clean. Mine weren't. I had a complicated week. I thought about that dinner 100 times. I thought about standing in that entryway, 7 months pregnant, hearing her say those words. I thought about Shane in the hallway, watching, silent. I also thought about my daughter. I thought about the life I had built. I thought about the fact that I had done the hard, unglamorous, uncinematic work of rebuilding completely from zero, and that no part of that process had included anyone from that family. I responded to Shane's text once. I said, I'm glad you're supporting your mom through this. I hope she gets better. But I am not part of that family anymore, and I'm not able to be what you're describing. Our daughter has my full heart. That's what I can give. He didn't respond for 2 days. Then he sent, I understand. Thank you. That was it. 41 missed calls. 3 years of silence from her end unless it was going through lawyers. And when she needed something, when the dynamic shifted, suddenly I existed again. I have thought about how to end this story, and I keep coming back to something my sister said to me during that first week, when I was sitting at her kitchen table trying to figure out how I had gotten to a place where I was 7 months pregnant and newly homeless, and my husband had watched me leave and said nothing. She said, Ivy, some people will only ever see your value when they need something from you. That's not love. That's inventory. I have thought about that a lot. I have thought about how many years I spent trying to be valued by people who were counting me rather than knowing me. My daughter is 3 now. She has this laugh that I can only describe as a whole-body event. She laughs with everything she has. She is not afraid of anything yet. She runs full speed at the world and fully expects it to catch her. I don't know if she'll ever have a relationship with her paternal grandmother. That's not my decision to make. When she's old enough to ask, I'll answer honestly and without loading my answer with my own wounds. That's the best I can do. What I know is this: I kept the door closed, not out of cruelty, not out of revenge, but because I finally understood, after years of standing in doorways waiting to be let in, that I had the right to decide what came through mine. 41 missed calls. I didn't answer a single one, and I have never slept better in my life. I've been thinking a lot about cause and effect lately, not in any grand cosmic sense, just in the ordinary, human, everyday sense. The idea that the choices we make have weight, and that weight lands somewhere eventually, whether we're watching for it or not. My mother-in-law made a choice the night she stood in that entryway and said what she said to me. She made it in front of her family, in her own home, to a woman who was 7 months pregnant with her grandchild. She had been making smaller versions of that choice for years. Every dismissive comment, every Sunday phone call designed to wedge, every time she looked at me and saw a problem to be managed instead of a person to be known. That night was just when the accumulation finally showed its face. And Shane made a choice too, standing in that hallway, saying nothing. I used to be angrier at him for that than I am now. Now I mostly just think that silence cost him more than it cost me. I rebuilt. He had to figure out who he was without his mother's voice telling him. What I've learned, really learned, not in a way I read somewhere but in a way I felt in my body over 3 hard years, is that integrity is not something you perform when people are watching. It's what you do when you're standing in a cold driveway at night with $32 and a duffel bag and a baby you're already responsible for. It's the decision you make in that moment about what kind of person you're going to be going forward. I could have collapsed. I could have called Shane and begged. I could have apologized to his mother for things I didn't do just to get back inside somewhere warm. I didn't, not because I'm exceptional, but because somewhere underneath the fear, I knew that the price of that warmth was too high. Some doors, once you walk back through them, lock behind you in ways you can't see until years later. The intelligence part, and I mean real intelligence, not grades or titles, is knowing the difference between a situation that needs more patience and a situation that has already told you everything it's going to tell you. I had been patient for 2 years. I had extended goodwill I didn't have. I had made myself smaller in rooms where I deserved to take up space. At some point, continuing to do that isn't patience. It's just self-erasure with a polite name. And the resilience that came from my daughter. Not in a sentimental way, in a practical way. She needed me to function. She needed me to show up to my shifts, make the payments, find the apartment, build the routine. She didn't need a perfect mother. She needed a present one. And so I got up every day and I did the next thing and then the next, and somewhere in that unglamorous process I looked up and realized I had built a life that was genuinely mine. The 41 missed calls will always be the part of the story that says the most without saying anything. 3 years of silence. No acknowledgement, no accountability, no reaching across the distance she had created. Then a hospital bed, a moment of need, and suddenly I existed again. That's not a coincidence. That's the natural result of spending decades treating people as resources rather than as human beings with their own limits. I don't say that with satisfaction. I say it because I think it matters for anyone who is currently in that in-between place, still trying to earn the approval of someone who has already decided how they see you. The trying doesn't change how they see you. It only delays the moment when you finally see yourself clearly. I am 31 years old. I own a house with a yard. My daughter laughs with her whole body. I sleep without dread. That's not luck. That's the long, quiet result of one decision made in the cold, on a February night, to not go back.